Hey there, my name is Sandy. I'm a licensed realtor here in the Central Florida area. Today I want to do a video on what are some of the most popular neighborhoods in the Orlando area. Because a lot of people relocate here all the time and they're a little bit confused on the different areas. Whether you're thinking of relocating to the area or maybe getting a property for Airbnb or investing in the area, people are curious about what are some of the most popular areas in the area. So let's talk about if you're relocating to live here. If you're relocating to live here, you want to be away from the tourism, right? You don't want to be too close to Disney and you don't want to be too caught up in the tourism side of town. So some of these popular areas would be areas like Winter Garden, Windermere, Claremont, Ocoee, Apopka, areas of Orlando, to name a few. Now let's say you're coming here, you want to invest in a real estate property because you want to do Airbnb. Because a lot of people come to Central Florida for Airbnb, some of the most popular location would be areas around Disney World, like the Davenport area, parts of Kissimmee, and also parts of Claremont. Now I want to talk about Claremont, Kissimmee, and Davenport because those are three interested areas. All three areas are about 30 minutes or less to the Orlando airport. Disney World is more in Kissimmee than it is in Orlando, even though some people don't realize that. So if you're coming into the Central Florida area, you most likely will be coming into Orlando Airport. But Disney World is about another 30 minutes from the Orlando Airport to get to Disney World itself. And Disney World is more closer to Kissimmee, Davenport, Claremont, although all the other areas that I just mentioned, including Winter Garden, is still within a 30-minute drive. So it kind of gets kind of confusing, doesn't it? So when it comes to Kissimmee, Davenport, and Claremont, those areas of pockets in them that are closer to Disney World and that are zoned for short-term renting if you're looking to do Airbnb. But if you're looking to live as well, there are parts of Kissimmee, Davenport, and Claremont that are not close to the park, that are further away from the park, that are not zoned for short-term rental, and that you'll be able to live. Like for instance, let's say Kissimmee. Celebration is a part of Kissimmee. Celebration is not zoned for short-term renting. They have, I think, 2 condo hotels in that area that you could buy a condo hotel to do Airbnb, but Celebration is more area if you want to live. Same thing with Reunion. Reunion is on the outskirts. Reunion is between Kissimmee and Davenport. So it's kind of like in the middle there, a little area in the middle. It has a 34747 zip code, which is a part of the Kissimmee zip code, believe it or not. And Reunion, you could either live there or you could also buy investment properties to use as Airbnb. Davenport tends to be the same area. So there's a little pocket at Davenport called Champions Gate. And in Champions Gate is where a lot of the short-term renting properties would be. And Champions Gate also have a golf course that is renowned. And Champions Gate, believe it or not, is right next to Reunion. See how confusing that could be? So Champions Gate is indeed a part of Davenport, even though people will debate that as well. But there's no such thing as Champions Gate, Florida, even though Lennar, that was a big builder, when they were building up Champions Gate, they came in and they bought a lot of land in Davenport that was close to Reunion and Kissimmee, and the area was called Champions Gate, so they tend to market it as Champions Gate. And Lennar built a huge development there that is zoned for short-term renting. And people in that development, they either buy properties to do Airbnb or they buy properties to live. But that's a part of Champions Gate. But the Lennar section of Champions Gate is not the entire Champions Gate, right? There's still other things in Champions Gate, other developments in Champions Gate, and then Champions Gate is also a part of Davenport. So if you're looking to do that, that's where you would be. There are, however, parts of Davenport that's very rural, going more towards in city, or even the outskirts of Champion Gates that is great to live in. So if you hear Davenport, Kissimmee, or Claremont, that doesn't necessarily mean it's just only short-term renting. And if you're looking to invest in those particular areas, you got to make sure that the area you're looking in is zoned that way, right? I'm so excited. I'm talking so fast, right? So let's talk about Claremont. So there's a part of Claremont, which is the 34714 zip code area that is zoned for short-term or long-term, or is zoned for short-term or Airbnb renting, but you could also live there long-term. And there are another parts of Claremont, which is a 34711 zip code or a 34715 zip code, that is mostly for if you're coming to live, like for residential living, has nothing to do with short-term renting or any of that stuff, and it is not zoned that way. Now the 34715 zip code is very peculiar because part of that is in Claremont and part of that is in Mineola. And there's a huge development being built called Mineola Hills that is going to have a lot of amenities there that is just being built right now. I think there's like 4 builders already there. It started being built out in 2020 and now they're beginning to get in the final stages of it. Not all the amenities are there, but it's zoned to become that, and it's a very popular area that people are wanting to buy in that area for that reason. Now as we step out of that Claremont, Kissimmee, Davenport area, now we're in Orlando. And this is where the story gets really excited because there's so many different sections of Orlando. Now, for Orlando, for my investors who love to do short-term renting, when it comes to Orlando, most of Orlando is not zoned for short-term renting at all. There's condo hotels that are in Orlando that is zoned that way, but let's say a single-family pool home, most of those homes are not zoned that way, and if they are that way, the owner has to live in the home to rent it on Airbnb, which nobody wants. So if you're looking for a pool home and you want to do short-term investing, then you're going to go more towards Claremont, Davenport, and the Kissimmee area. Let's get back to Orlando. So Orlando have many different parts of it. We have the Lake Nona side of Orlando. We have Dr. Phillips side of Orlando. We have Metro West side of Orlando. And then on the outskirts of that, we have Windermere. We have Winter Park. We have Bel Air, which is another side of Orlando. So Orlando is quite intensive and big, and it depends upon where you want to be close to when you're looking in the Orlando area. Most of Orlando is going to be for long-term residential living. We have Bay Hill as well, which is a part of the Orlando area. We have Keens Point, which is a part of the Orlando area. And some of these locations are not very close to the airport. But everything that I'm talking about, guys, will put you within 30 minutes to the airport. Now, when talking about Central Florida, there are different areas outside of these areas on the outskirts that will give you more house for your money, like Grooveland, like Tavares, Eustis, like parts of Lakeland, like Winter Haven, like Winter Haven on one side, Winter Springs on the other side. There's so many winters, right? I gotta make sure I'm getting it right. So there's some areas that are on the outskirts beyond the Orlando, the immediate Central Florida area. They're still a part of Central Florida, but they lay either between Orlando and Daytona Beach, or Orlando and Tampa, which is many, many different areas in between that, or Orlando and then Mount Dora going up into more Lake County area.